Gaza ceasefire deals hanging in the balance tonight after Hamas announced it would postpone further hostage prisoner exchanges, accusing Israel of violating the agreement. President Donald Trump has responded from the Oval Office with this today, a show of force.
As far as I'm concerned, if all of the hostages aren't returned by Saturday at 12 o'clock, I think it's an appropriate time. I would say cancel it and all bets are off, and let hell break out.
Joining me now, the Deputy Foreign Affairs Minister of Israel, Sharren Haskell. Sharren, thank you for your time. That ultimatum from the President, it could not have been clearer. Everyone out, all hostages by Saturday at noon. Do you think it will happen?
Well, I really hope so. But Peter, we are dealing with a terrorist organization. They've already violated numerous times since we've signed the ceasefire agreement. They violated a few times already. But this is a complete outrage. The fact that on Saturday there were meant to be another 4 hostages being released and they declare they want to do it. We are absolutely furious. We know our forces, they've been ready from the start. We knew that that might happen when dealing with a terrorist organization. So our troops are ready. They are ready to resume our war against Hamas at any point, at any minute. And on Saturday, if they will not release our hostages, we will be ready as well.
We've watched here in Australia, as the world has, the recent images of those released, severely emaciated hostages. I mean, clearly the conditions appear to be deteriorating in the tunnels. Do we know more about the children and the babies in particular?
Well, look, all of the hostages are being abused physically, emotionally. They're being tortured. Matter of fact, one of our hostages, Ohel, he's actually being chained. We have information that they've chained him the whole time. He's in a cage. He's injured in his eyes. He's in a very difficult mental, situation, and we are very concerned, particularly, especially about 2 babies that are being held for more than a year now in the hands of these monsters. They are meant to be released also during this first stage of the ceasefire. And yet, as much as Hamas was meant to tell us, the condition of each hostage, and they didn't, as it was agreed on our agreement, we are in desperate need to get more information about the Bivas family. We saw Yarden, the husband, coming back, not knowing what had happened to his wife and his 2 babies. The entire country heart is completely broken and shattered, and we will not stop. We will not stop our war against Hamas until they are all back home, all of them.
Look, I have to say, we've watched that family ourselves here in Australia, and I think the world is on a knife edge to hope that they do come home, that the family comes home intact. I think we all fear that there may be more coffins now than hostages. Look, we hope we're all wrong. I must say, listening to the interviews from the women hostages, the bravery, the resilience, the fight still in these women after what they have gone through, I just think it is awe-inspiring.
Thank you so much. I completely agree. I mean, the resilience and the strength that they showed, they endured, that they shared with one another, the stories on how they supported one another during a really difficult time. I mean, this is hell. They've been through hell, and now, the recovery process is starting. And I don't think anyone can even imagine what they've been through. Those monsters on the 7th of October committed crimes against humanity, raping, burning elderlies alive, executing babies and children. This is the worst massacre of Jews since the Holocaust. And we know that. We know that we cannot let something like that ever happen again. Our goal is very clear: bringing back our family members home and making sure that Hamas or anyone else is incapable of committing such crimes ever again.
Shireen, you criticised the Albanese government for its handling of anti-Semitism in Australia following Attorney General Mark Dreyfus's visit to Israel last month. Well, this week in the Australian Parliament, Mark Dreyfus, has accused the coalition of politicising anti-Semitism in Australia. Have a listen.
But those opposite have taken every opportunity since the 7th of October 2023 to politicise the trauma and the experiences of the Jewish people. You're disgusting.
There's nothing more serious than the opposition being accused of politicising an issue like this.
A cat does a somersault. A man looks for toilet paper. And
accused of politicising an issue like this.
Now, I'm not going to comment on the Knesset. I'm not asking you to comment on our parliament, but I mean, anyone can see that anti-Semitism is on the rise in Australia, has been on the rise, and it's not playing politics, is it, to point this out?
Look, Peter, my position as a leader here in Israel is not just to look after, our nation and our people and the Jewish people here in Israel, but it is our responsibility to look after the Jewish communities all around the world. This is one of the ideas behind Israel, that Israel will forever be the defender and the shelter of Jews all around the world. And when I saw that rise of anti-Semitism in Australia, I couldn't believe it. I lived for years in Maroubra, just around the corner from the daycare that was burned, that was attacked. I could never imagine something like that happening in Australia. The Jewish community was safe. It was one of the most accepting places. It is a heaven for communities from all around the world coming to Sydney, to Australia, to build their life, to live in a shared communities with different nations, with different people. And I think that it hasn't been addressed properly for a very long time, and it's been let go. I've said, and the Prime Minister have said as well, it was obvious that the rhetoric against Israel has inflated some of that hatred as well. And I stand behind that. But also, just after the 7th of October, on the 8th of October, those pro-jihadists were marching in the Opera House, screaming out, yelling out, "Gas the Jews." There wasn't a single soldier in Gaza. We haven't started our operations for 3 weeks after the 7th of October. What were they demonstrating there for? They were supporting the worst massacre of Jews since the Holocaust, yelling out, "Gas the Jews." It means they want to attack all Jewish communities all around the world. How many people were arrested? How many people were persecuted? How many people were charged of crime, of hate crime? If you don't tackle that, if you don't address that and draw a red line, it will just continue to deteriorate. And so it was my role as well, understanding the lack of enforcement against the explosion of hatred and violence against Jews, in particular, also about Minister Dreyfus. I mean, his office was attacked as well because he was Jewish. There has to be a clear red line against that hatred, the bigotry, these attacks, physical attacks. And I think that the government was very slow on doing that. And that's why it was important for me to address that, so that, to protect the Jewish community, to make sure the government does take action, not just word, but action to keep them safe. And I think that the changing of the legislation last week is very welcome. I think that's a start, but there's much more that needs to be done to make sure that the Jewish community is safe and secured in Australia.
Well, we stand with you on that. We are having a special forum at Sky News on anti-Semitism. We want practical action. We're fighting in your corner. Thank you, Shireen.